Inflation in Nigeria hit 28% at some point, but your savings account was just paying you max of 5% interest. Now, here are 7 strategies that I use to not just beat inflation, but to profit from it. Hi, my name is Ola, and on this channel, we'll talk about personal finance, investing, and the economy. So if this is your vibe, please subscribe, hit the notification button, and let's talk about inflation. If you are keeping money in a regular savings account in Nigeria, or even worse, you are keeping it in your current account, you are actually getting poorer every day. Even though you are seeing your balance moving, meaning even though you are making money, but you're actually getting poorer every day. Today, I want to talk about practical ways that you can protect your money and make it grow faster than inflation can eat it. First option, dollar-denominated investment. So for me, if you are in Nigeria, right, and you have worked for at least 10 years, you would have seen that it's a cycle. No matter how much we hope, we try, we plan, right? Eventually you will see that the cycles would move and you would see that the currency will slide. We were at 360 at some point. 1,500 sounded far-fetched, but we are here right now and we don't know where it's going to go in the future. And that's just the reality. And guess what? It's not just a Nigerian problem. If you look at the exchange rate of the pound to the dollar or the Canadian dollar to the US dollar, you realize, or even Japanese yen, it's not just a Nigerian problem, right? The way the American economy is structured is for capital to flow towards it. And if capital consistently flows towards it, the currency will get stronger and the alternate currency will get weaker. It's not that I'm cursing the country. So, in this current world and existence that we are in, there is a case for you to have dollar-denominated investment. Why? Because you are shielding yourself for the impact of that currency strengthening, or in your own case, currency weakening. So how do you do that? The first thing you can consider is a mutual fund. There are Eurobond mutual funds that asset managers offer intermittently. There's dollar-based interest rate fixed deposits, right? That you can do, right? We've talked about it and then the video I did on Eurobond investing and mutual fund managers will pop up here. So check it out. Either it pops up or it will be in the description. But understand that as a Nigerian, a dollar-denominated investment, it must be a part of your portfolio in order to beat inflation. Now, so that you even understand this whole inflation thing deeper, right? Understand that most of the inflation that we are seeing, meaning that prices are jumping from 100 to 500 to 1,000, it is simply because the currency was sliding. And because we are importing everything, as the price of something goes from $1 to 1.2 abroad, and then also as the currency goes from 1,000 to 1.5, everything is just hitting you, Basbos. So the way to beat inflation, one of the ways, dollar-denominated investments. Yeah. Now, the second strategy that you might find interesting is treasury bills and bonds. I actually did a video on why I would still invest in bonds, even though inflation was higher than it. And here's the fact. What people don't realize is that eventually, as much as inflation got to 28, it will come down to 14 eventually. And there are many reasons why that will happen. When inflation gets so high, the central bank begins to take interest rates up. And once they take interest rates up, everything begins to slow down. So eventually, inflation shall be forced to come down. That's one. The second reason why inflation would still eventually come down to reasonable levels is that there is something called base year effect. If, for example, last year, inflation jumped from, or let's use a particular item, let's say a bottle of a drink went from 1 naira to 1 naira 50 kobo, that's a 50% increase. You know that if it goes from 1 naira 50 kobo to 2 naira, even though it's still the same 50 kobo, but the growth will now be benchmarked in the new year at 1 naira 50 kobo. So it won't be 50% anymore. It'll be like 30-something percent. That's one of the reasons why you would see that they will announce inflation came down. You're like, no, prices still went up. But yes, the base year was higher. So the growth will be lower and so inflation will come down. Yeah, have I taught you another thing today? So that being the case, right? When you are comparing inflation numbers with government bonds, if you lock in a 10-year government bond at 22%, and at the time when you lock in that bond, inflation is at 28, yes, you will say negative interest rate for that first year. But what happens the next year where it is still at 22%, but inflation is now at 15? Do you realize that even though you're saying, why would I lock in for 10 years? Why would I lock in for 10 years? 10 years will still come. So if you see a high rate on a government bond, you know that it's a naira bond. So the government always has money to pay back. They'll just print cash and pay you back. Why? Why would you not do that? So that's another thing that I do. I invest in government bonds. Now, another thing you need to know about government bonds, and I've had videos done about government bonds in the past. You can check them out. They'll pop up or be in the description. When you think about government bonds is that if you want to go to the primary market yourself, that means you want to buy directly from the government, the minimum you can invest is 50 million. But you don't need to do that, right? You can actually buy a bond fund, right? That actually invests in government bonds. And with your 5K, 10K, 100K, you can go into it. I really learned another thing today. Yeah. So government bonds, that's another thing that I would do. Why? Because it's long term. And once you lock in at that very high yield, even though yields come down, you will still have your 22% that you are enjoying. And then, of course, if you don't know, I did a video on asset managers that you can invest in, you can invest through in Nigeria. So check that video out. There are different options. They all have bonds, funds that you can access. You can also buy bonds through them or through your bank if you don't know how. That's another thing. Now, the third thing that I do to beat inflation in Nigeria is actually real estate. Now, for me, I think buying land in a good location, right, usually has a lower entry point than buying a full house, but it still increases in value. Now, understand what I mean. Imagine if you buy a land somewhere on the outskirts of Lagos for like 3 million, right? First of all, to find a full house that will be worth 3 million, I don't know what state you will be in. Yeah, it's definitely not Lagos, right? You have to go for the ones that are hinterland, right? But if you buy that land and it goes from 3 million to 6 million, you know that that's double, like your money has doubled. Yeah. So if the location is good, and when you go into real estate, the major thing you need to talk about is location. Location, what is the prospect of this area? Is there any future plan? Has the government earmarked anything for this location? Are they bringing roads to this location? All those kind of things. Those are the things that will make you decide, okay, this is the area to invest in. But if you get it good on real estate, you would actually be very glad. That's another thing that I do when I am, and I mean, we are always trying to beat inflation. FYI, inflation is always there. Yeah, always there. If you say that you don't have 3 million naira to invest, but you have your 50K, your 100K, your 200K here and there, there's something called a real estate investment trust. The acronym is REIT. It's called a REIT, right? But it's a real estate investment trust. What it is that they gather people's money and then they can buy that land or that property, whatever it is, right? That is your option. But what are you doing? Once the value of the properties in that rate increases, the value of your investment increases at the same time. So yes, you are beating inflation. Now, if you are in Nigeria and you are seeing how rental prices are being jacked up, you can see how a property will be this today and then that by the next, and you're wondering what happened. Then instead of you being on the side of the what happened, be on the side of the person increasing price. Yeah? Is that not a good plan? And there are also these crowdfunding apps, right? I don't even have one to recommend right now, but tread with caution, but they are a very viable option. Very, very viable. Now, the fourth thing that I do when I'm trying to beat inflation, Nigerian stock market. Nigerian stock market. If you are in Nigeria and you have 1,000 naira lying down and you have not bought one stock to your name, I'm shaking my head at you. Now, you might say that the stock market is volatile, blah, 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 right? But you actually need to sit down and look. The Nigerian stock market steady delivers returns. Oh, I'm not saying go and buy the things that don't have head or tail. And maybe that's another video. If you would like me to do a video on the Nigerian stock market and how I select stocks and maybe my top stock recommendations, tell me in the comment section. But these are the kind of things that we get in the club. FYI, I have an investment community. It's called the Money with Club. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Check it out. The link will also be in the description. Check us out. These are the things that we do. I think even our next session is going to be on stocks. That's the plan. But the Nigerian stock market is doing quite well. The fact is that it's not as broad as the New York Stock Exchange. It's not as broad as the NASDAQ in terms of the size, that means the total capital size, and also in terms of the number of companies listed. But the companies that are growing are growing. The banking sector in Nigeria is steady growing. So why won't you hold banking stocks? No matter what you do, you would still buy sugar. You will still buy Milo milk, right? We have still have those prices have doubled, but we are still buying them. So why won't you own a piece of those companies? No matter what you do, you are still making phone calls. So why would you be a consumer and not also want to be a part of the investment side of things? And there are those viable opportunities. I'm not saying go and look at penny stocks. No, we're not doing penny stocks is not a game in Nigeria like that. You have to look at the company and say, are they selling markets? If they are consistently selling markets on the streets and they are well run, then why not if not? So one of the things that I am steady doing is that I'm buying stocks. Why? Because the stock market is growing with inflation. So if inflation is 28%, go and check the companies that are running the shop in the country. They are growing more than 28%. So you want to beat inflation and you're not buying stocks. Explain in the comment section why you are not buying stocks. Let's hear. Let's solve it. Do you understand? But there's no reason why you are not buying stocks in Nigeria. And the final one that I do, right, is that I invest in foreign stocks. Now, the fact is that I'm not just trying to beat inflation in Nigeria, I'm also trying to build wealth, right? And let me even talk about the foreign stock market, not just as the stock market for the public stocks, but also venture capital and things like that, right? Venture capital is also equity, right? It's also stocks, but it's not public, it's private. Why am I doing that? Because equities are the way forward. You can actually buy like 10 of these companies and only one will do well. And that one that does well can be your retirement money. Do you understand? So in the bid to beat inflation, don't just think short term because inflation is measured annually, like year on year. But think long term. There is a way to say my goal is to avoid someone or my goal is to meet something. So if you are running away from inflation, there's a posture. But if you are trying to build wealth, there's another posture. But you might be doing the same actions. Your reasoning is different. So I encourage you that whilst you are trying to beat inflation, which is valid, also set a wealth goal. Because setting that wealth goal is what will make you take some of this risk and make it make sense to you. There is no reason why you are a Nigerian in Nigeria today and you have not either done some kind of venture capital deal or done some kind of foreign stock market deal. And we're not saying kill the economy. We've done bonds. We are doing Nigerian stocks. It's a balanced portfolio, right? But you have to have balance. You have to do everything, especially if you're young. Just build over time, right? So I also do foreign stock market. I'm also playing the foreign stock market. And I think it's important for us to have this mindset that, see, inflation would always inflate. You can't stop it. You can't stop regulators, leaders from making the decisions that throw us into those kind of economic situations. However, what you can do is position your portfolio quietly, diligently, and consistently to beat it eventually. Don't think on a year-on-year basis only. Think long-term. Think compounding. When you even get those returns, right? Don't eat it because those are the things. Don't eat it. Put it in the next opportunity, and that's how you begin to build. And the final thing that I do when it comes to inflation, especially when it is really bad and it is jumping, is that I just stockpile. Like, that's like the simplest thing. Prices are going up, prices are going up. Do I have cash? Yes. Please, let's just go to the market, close our eyes, and just buy everything that we need. Buy all the tomato, buy everything, and freeze and rest. Because part of this whole thing is your sanity. Just seeing all those things jumping can stress you a lot. And I think that's my last tip for today. If you have found this video useful, Please drop in the comment section which tip you are going to pick up today. And if you have any questions or reservations around any of my recommendations, I'm also happy to hear. Don't forget that you can't outsource your health and your finances. You always have to engage. No one can go to the gym on your behalf and you'll be fit. No one can eat vegetables on your behalf and you'll be healthy. It's the same way you have to engage. Don't wish inflation away. You can't stop inflation from inflating. You can't stop the regulators and decision makers from making these decisions that get us into this kind of situations. But you can actually take hold of your own finances, learn and take action. See you in the next video. Bye.